VidNotes. VidNotes. It's 7-1 time. I will understand how China in the 1500s interacts with Europe. Today we're going to be talking about this country about 500 years ago. Where have we been? We've been to Europe. Then we've gone to Latin America for revolutions there. Then we've gone to Africa and India to see how they freed themselves from European and outsider control. And now we're going to talk about China and Japan in Unit 7. Both also faced European domination. How did they handle it? Let's see. First, Asian countries we will study. Label each of these 5 countries on your map now. Pause and label now. And then China. Today we're going to exclusively talk about China. And first we need to know the Silk Road. Where was it? On your map, please draw a dot with Quanzhou. That's an important port place in China. And then you can draw a line, dot. There's Constantinople. The Romans had that city. And then it was taken over by the Ottoman Muslims and they renamed it Istanbul. So let's write that. Let's connect. Let's label Silk Road. And then let's also circle the important body of water that connects China to Europe. It's the Mediterranean Sea. Circle and label. Let's do it. What China traded along the Silk Road? These were Chinese exports that were demanded by Europeans. Tea, paper, the compass, silk, and porcelain. All were Chinese exports sent out. Religion in China. The Silk Road brings the religion of Buddhism to China. And today, China's most worshipped religion is, in fact, Buddhism. And there's the wheel of Dharma to remind us. Next up, let's locate the maritime trade route. The South China Sea was an important waterway for Chinese trade. Circle, label. Now, let's talk about the Qing dynasty. That was the last dynasty in China. And here's how you spell it in Chinese characters. There's the flag and there's the logo of the Qing dynasty. It started in 1636 and ends in 1912. What is a dynasty? In this case, it's when rulers are from the same family. So the Qing dynasty included rulers who were related. And an important Qing ruler was the Emperor Kangxi. He ruled for 61 years, starting at the ripe old age of 7. His grandmother actually ruled until he was more mature to be able to make decisions. And another thing he did was successfully fight off foreign takeovers from Russia and from Japan, for example. That's Kangxi. Addicted to opium. During Kangxi's rule, during Qing China, unfortunately, the British East India Company sold opium to Qing China. Second bullet. The Chinese then used this drug recreationally. Britain profits from it, and the Qing rulers are not happy. So the British East India Company's opium creates these opium dens. Chinese are using this, and they're not just using it for medicine, they're using it for recreation. And there is the poppy plant where you get opium from, and the British planted these poppy plants in India and had Indian farmers help them. In 1838, 27% of Chinese men were opium addicts, according to one source. That is a lot, and that is a problem. You can understand why the Qing rulers would not be happy with Britain and its major company. So, opium wars result, the wars between the British and the Chinese over this drug overuse. The Opium Wars, what were they? Conflicts between Europeans and China over the opium trade and over China's independence. When was it? There were a series of conflicts from 1839 to 1860. And here you see one scene. The British soldiers are fighting the Chinese in this case. How the Opium Wars started: in 1839, Qing China took 1,000 tons of British opium. Now, British merchants want the Qing rulers to repay them for that. They are not happy that Qing China does this. But the Qing rulers refuse to repay the merchants. And then a black market continues for smuggling opium drugs in China. The British are addicted to the money they get, and the Chinese are still addicted to the drug itself. And this cartoon shows that the British merchants are shoving that opium down the throats of the Chinese. The Opium Wars, how do they end? Well, in 1860, Britain and France force a deal with China, and Europeans gain control of Chinese ports. Thirdly, Qing China is humiliated by this, and this dynasty collapses. How is Qing China humiliated? The French and the British troops burn down the palaces of ancient China. And you see here the French troops are invading the summer palace of the Chinese emperor. The Opium Wars also cause imperialism in China. The European traders create spheres of influence, in other words, areas of control. So each color represents a different European country. In this case, we also have Japan and Russia here. They all want a piece of the Chinese trade pie in China. And those are all spheres of influence that these places have in China. The Chinese say, go away. We don't want your foreign influence. So China's response to this European imperialism, China creates foreign enclaves to control European trade and to prevent Europe's cultural domination in their own country. And let's define this term. Enclave is an area with its own cultural identity. So the European traders will allow their own little neighborhood to be able to trade. European imperialism leads to more conflict, and it involves these secret fighters called the Boxers. So the Boxer Rebellion took place, and it started in 1899, and it ended in 1901. What does the name come from? Where does it come from? The Boxers did training exercises that they thought made bullets bounce off of their bodies, and the Europeans called their odd training shadow boxing. That's how they get their nickname. And this is a German cartoon showing the boxing gloves of the Boxers and all of the Europeans fighting. What happened? A secret group of Chinese fighters that were called the Harmonious Fists attacked the outsiders who were in China. And these men, otherwise known as the Boxers, killed Europeans and Chinese Christians, and they chased them off of their enclaves in China. The Chinese rulers support the Boxers. In June 1900, the Qing rulers declared war on all foreign nations in China. So you have Chinese soldiers and Boxer soldiers fighting together in this picture, and the British are trying to overtake them. And the Chinese and the Boxers both lose. Then European countries and the US sent 20,000 soldiers to end the rebellion. And these are all countries that participated in the Boxer Rebellion on the side of Europe and the US. As a part of the treaty that ends this, the Chinese government was forced to apologize. And this is really when the Qing dynasty comes to an end. You have but one research question left. When you're done with that, you are done with 7-1. This is Mr. Deegan signing